The upscale restaurant pulsed with life, its air thick with the clink of crystal glasses, the murmur of soft jazz, and the warm scent of artisan bread fresh from the oven. Golden sunlight streamed through towering windows, painting the crisp white tablecloths with a glow that felt almost magical. It was just another weekday afternoon at Lame Zone, a haven for the elite to showcase their wealth, but for Anna Muller, it was another chapter in a life stitched together with quiet struggles. She smoothed her apron, her hands trembling slightly, not from nerves, but from the weight of double shifts that never seemed to end. With a practiced smile, she approached a table that would soon spark a moment no one in the room would ever forget. If you're someone who believes in the power of kindness, courage, and second chances, then stick around, hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe to Midnight Tales, because this is a tale that proves humanity can shine even in the darkest moments. Anna had been running on fumes for weeks, her days a blur of serving plates and dodging snide remarks at Lame Zone, where the city's richest dined. Her mother's hospital bills loomed like a storm cloud, and her younger brother's tuition fees gnawed at her savings. Yet, she never let her exhaustion show. Her feet ached, her vision blurred, but she carried herself with a quiet grace forged in hardship, a grace only those who've faced real struggle understand. That afternoon, a group of businessmen swaggered in, their presence commanding the room before they even claimed their seats. At the center was Carl Schneider, a billionaire investor notorious for his cutthroat deals and a tongue that could slice through egos like a hot knife. Whispers rippled through the restaurant as heads turned. Power has a way of shrinking everyone else in its shadow. Carl's smile was sharp, calculated, never reaching his cold eyes. He thrived on the attention, the awe, the fear. Anna noticed him, not because of his fame, but because it was her job to serve him. She approached with a tray of drinks, her hands steady despite the weight of their stares, those judgmental glances that sized her up by the apron she wore. Carl leaned back, his voice smooth as he spoke in German to his companions, assuming no one nearby could understand. His words dripped with disdain, mocking Anna's trembling hands, calling her clumsy, a poor girl trying to play graceful in a world that wasn't hers. The table erupted in laughter, the sound cutting through the air like a jagged blade. Anna froze, her pulse racing. She understood every syllable. Once, she'd been a language student, dreaming of a career as a translator, fluent in German and 3 other languages. But life had other plans. After her father's death, she'd left university to support her family, trading textbooks for trays, dreams for survival. She could have walked away. She could have swallowed the insult, let it fester like so many others. But something inside her, a spark of unyielding strength, refused to let this moment slip by. Setting the drinks down with deliberate care, she took a breath, her hazel eyes locking onto Carl's with a calm that belied the fire within. In flawless German, her voice steady as steel, she spoke. She told him respect isn't bought with money, and intelligence isn't measured by status. She said the language he used to mock her was one she'd studied out of love, to build bridges, not walls. Her words weren't loud, but they carried the weight of someone with nothing left to lose. The laughter at the table died, replaced by a stunned silence that seemed to hush the entire restaurant. Carl's smirk vanished, his confidence cracking like thin ice. His companions shifted uncomfortably, their bravado crumbling under the weight of her quiet power. Anna didn't linger for their reaction. She turned and walked away, leaving a billionaire staring at his own reflection in a wine glass, his world suddenly smaller. For the rest of the meal, Carl was subdued, his usual swagger replaced by an unfamiliar stillness. His friends avoided his gaze, their earlier arrogance now a faint memory. Anna's words had cut deeper than she'd meant them to, piercing something Carl hadn't felt in years, shame. When he asked for the bill, he also requested to speak with the manager. The room tensed, and Anna's heart sank. She braced for the worst, humiliation, maybe even losing her job for daring to speak out. The manager called her over, and she approached, steeling herself for the blow. But then Carl stood, his face no longer smug but softened, almost human. In German, then English, he apologized. The restaurant fell silent again, jaws dropping at the sight of a billionaire humbling himself before a waitress. He admitted he'd misjudged her, that he'd forgotten what respect truly meant. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of vulnerability. He left a generous tip, not as a bribe, but as a gesture of gratitude, and walked out with his entourage trailing behind, their usual bravado nowhere to be found. Anna didn't cry, though the urge was there. Instead, she exhaled, her heart trembling with a mix of relief and pride. She'd stood up not just for herself, but for every person who'd ever been made to feel less than. Weeks passed, and life at Lame Zone returned to its relentless rhythm. Anna kept serving, kept smiling, kept pushing through. But one morning, a letter arrived at the restaurant, addressed to her in elegant handwriting. It was from Carl Schneider. Inside, he wrote that their encounter had shaken him to his core. He'd grown up poor, he confessed, but success had buried that part of him under layers of ego and ambition. Anna's courage had reminded him of the humility and empathy he'd once held dear. Her words had sparked a reckoning, forcing him to confront the man he'd become. Enclosed with the letter was something extraordinary, a scholarship application and a sponsorship offer. Carl had established a fund in Anna's name to support underprivileged students chasing their dreams. He wanted her to be the first to benefit. Anna's hands shook as she read the letter, tears blurring the words. A few honest words, spoken in a moment of courage, had not only defended her dignity but had rekindled humanity in someone else's heart. She accepted the scholarship, returned to her studies, and years later, became the translator she'd always dreamed of being. Her voice, once confined to a restaurant's tables, now connected people across languages and cultures. Eventually, she was invited to speak at a university event about resilience and kindness. Standing on stage, looking out at a sea of young faces, she thought back to that sunlit afternoon, the cruel laughter, and the silence that followed. She told the students that kindness isn't weakness, it's strength wrapped in gentleness. And sometimes, standing up with grace can change even the most hardened hearts. If this story of courage and redemption moved you, then please, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Midnight Tales. Stories like Anna's remind us that a single moment of bravery can ripple through lives, leaving the world a little brighter. Before you go, drop a comment below. What would you have done in Anna's shoes? Would you have stayed silent, or would you have spoken your truth, knowing it might cost you everything? As the sun dipped below the horizon that day, casting a warm glow over Lame Zone's empty tables, Anna lingered a little longer, wiping down surfaces as always. But something had shifted inside her. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was living proof that dignity can't be bought, that words can heal, and that one moment of courage can echo through someone's life like sunlight piercing a storm. Somewhere, in a sleek office tower far away, a billionaire sat by a window, clutching a letter with her name on it, whispering a quiet thank you to the woman who reminded him that wealth is meaningless without heart.